Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're at. My name is Chris Good. I am the Director of Product Marketing here at Tabnine. Just got to remove this banner here. Perfect. This is your first time joining us. Welcome to Tabnine Office Hours. This is a fully interactive session where we're going to do a presentation in the first half and do a demo the second half. This is not your first time coming here. Welcome back. It's good to see you again. Without further ado, let's kick things off and get started. So today we're going to be talking again, as we did last week, about code review and the importance there, and where other tools are sort of falling short, and where Tab9's picking up steam. And to be honest, in high stakes environments, traditional code review isn't just underperforming, it's breaking under pressure. Most tools only scratch the surface, right? Checking for syntax errors, but missing deeper violations of security policies, architecture rules, certification requirements. And, excuse me, when engineers are under deadlines, even the most basic issues get missed. Data Science Central noted that even easy to catch bugs regularly slip past human reviewers, especially when they're fatigued. That's just natural. That's not anecdotal, right? HackerOne found that human reviewers miss 30% of critical flaws in legacy or regulated systems, right? Think systems that we haven't maybe worked with in a few months or maybe ever, right? And this isn't just about bugs. It's about the cost of rework. It's about delayed compliance. It's about technical debt that quietly compounds until it jeopardizes entire programs. And in regulated industries, you can't afford untraceable risk. Standards like DO 178C and the international traffic and arms regulations demand audit-ready processes. And that's a high bar, very high bar. And manual review alone doesn't clear it. So in aerospace and defense, code review isn't a best practice, it's a mandate, right? These certifications like DO 178C and ITAR and CMMC, they don't just require that code works, they require that it's provable, that it's reviewable, that it's traceable. Why? Because every merge carries consequences, potential consequences. A single export sensitive line of code, if mishandled, can mean millions of compliance violations. A security flaw can cascade into an operational failure. And the lack of review documentation can trigger an audit failure, even if that code is technically correct. So according to RTCA and the NIST, a lack of traceability in AI-generated code has already caused certification rejections. And that's why trust isn't just cultural in these sectors, it's contractual. Now, let's talk about what traditional tools miss, right? Linters, basic review bots, they catch syntax issues, but they don't understand mission architecture, security boundaries, or embedded constraints. And SaaS-based AI tools like Copilot, Windsurf, and Cursor, they're automatically ruled out for classified or sovereign environments. There's no such thing as zero trust when your code is going to a cloud endpoint, right? So these tools are disqualified from SCIFs, from DODIN use by design. And worse, Copilot assisted code leaks secrets at a 40% higher rate than baseline repos. That's according to GitGuardian. And because these tools don't explain what they're doing or why, they introduce something we call silent risk, right? Without accountability, there's no traceability, means no compliance. Now, code review might work when you're 5 developers deep, but when you're 50, 100, 1,000, manual processes break down very fast. And senior engineers end up as bottlenecks, rubber stamping PRs to keep pipelines moving, review quality becomes wildly inconsistent. McKinsey found that code quality can vary 2x across teams without structured support. And worst of all, tribal knowledge never gets encoded. So the result is that standards drift, tech debt spreads, and developers spend around 42% of their time managing that debt instead of writing new code. Now, when code review breaks, the cost isn't hypothetical, it's financial, it's operational, and reputational. Missed defects means unplanned rework and delays. Non-compliant code can trigger audit failures. And in Copilot assisted repos, that 6.4% leak rate for secrets, which is again that 40% higher than non-AI baseline. According to Ponemon, the cost of non-compliance is 3x higher than compliance, right? Averaging around 15 mil per incident. And that's not a tooling problem, that's a governance failure. And every time your engineers are fixing last week's mistake, they're not building next quarter's roadmap. So tech debt isn't just a drag, it's a compounding liability. So what do elite teams do differently? For starters, they codify repeatable, or they codify the repeatable, and they elevate the review. They're shifting left, catching issues in the IDE before they hit a pull request. They define clear architectural and security review rules. They bring runtime output, like terminal errors, into the decision process, and they require that every change is explainable. And this isn't theory. McKinsey reports that AI tools paired with human reviewers reduce defects by 28% and increase review throughput. The best teams automate the trivial and focus on the review cycles on what actually matters. Now, here's the reality though. Not all AI belongs in your review process. Most LLMs are context blind. They don't know your architecture, they don't follow your rules, and they don't explain themselves. So in a high trust environment, black box output is a non-starter. NIST calls explainability a critical requirement for zero trust AI. And MITRE found that most LLMs fail outright on legacy or embedded systems. Some tools even introduce silent risk, right? So these mass overwrites, unexplained diffs, hallucinated logic. And if your AI can't enforce policy and prove its reasoning, it shouldn't be reviewing your code. Now, what does mission grade code review look like? One, it's policy driven. Right? Review suggestions must align with your rules, not GitHub's. Two, it's traceable. Every diff must include rationale, source, and rule reference. It's contextual, excuse me. So it's tied to your actual runtime environment. And then it's human in the loop. Always. There's no silent changes, no blind approvals. And it's deployable where you need it. SaaS, VPC, on-prem, and fully air-gapped as well. And I should mention we are the only person in the space, company in the space, that is pushing on-prem or fully air-gapped deployments that allows it and supports it. Other folks have pulled away. We have continued to invest in that space. So we're proud to be the only ones and welcome the responsibility with it. And the NIST's 2025 risk framework makes clear if your AI can't explain itself, it cannot be trusted. So Tabnine's code review agent was built for this moment, not for startups, but for sovereign software, classified networks, and enterprise code bases that outlive entire product lines. It aligns to your internal standards, security, maintainability, architecture, performance, correctness, readability, right? It interprets runtime context, test failures, logs, outputs, and it works across your entire SDLC, from IDE to terminal to pull request. Every suggestion is local, every decision is explainable, and you control the guardrails using your language, your patterns, and your data. And in zero trust environments, trust isn't, again, an emotion, it's a log file. Every Tabnine action is traceable. Prompt, response, model, reviewer, diffs, rules. There's no silent changes, no cloud callbacks, no invisible decisions. And this isn't just good design, it's a requirement. NIST and DoD now mandate verifiable logs and deterministic behavior for compliant AI. And if your audit trail can't survive scrutiny, your software won't survive procurement. So Tabnine doesn't just replace your experts, or doesn't replace your experts. It multiplies their impact. So instead of burning cycles triaging every PR, senior engineers can codify institutional knowledge into enforceable review policies. The result is less time reviewing syntax and more time mentoring talent. AI catches the repeatable, and humans handle the nuanced. Now, Tab9 doesn't just read the diff. It reads your test failures, your logs, your runtime environment. And that's what enables our code review agent to make context-aware decisions aligned to how your software actually behaves, not just how it's written. And according to, say, the IEEE, this kind of runtime-aware review reduces defect rates by, I think, 32% over syntax-only tools. That's not a marginal gain, right? That's the difference between missed bugs and certifiable builds. So Tab9 is really the only code review agent purpose-built for secure, air-gapped, and mission-critical environments. There's no cloud, there's no leaks, there's no external inference. It's local by design with customizable policy enforcement and explainable audit logs baked in. And that's why Tab9 is trusted inside of SCIFs, DODIN enclaves, and ITAR-bound pipelines, right? Where other tools like Copilot, Cursor, and Windsurf or Codium simply can't go. And we've sort of alluded to this earlier, but we'll touch on it again here. Let's be very clear. The rest of the field is retreating. Windsurf publicly confirmed that it has ended support for on-prem deployments. Cursor remains SaaS only, with no roadmap to change. And Copilot depends entirely on Azure-hosted models. Even in its private previews, requires persistent cloud access. And Tab9's different. We didn't retrofit for secure use cases. We built for them. Our platform is deployed today inside classified networks, inside air-gapped labs, and inside sovereign cloud environments across NATO-aligned defense agencies. And our competitors are walking away from this space. We're investing in it heavily. So Tab9's strength is architectural alignment. We don't bring AI into your environment. We bring an AI platform that respects your environment, your policies, your models, your runtime. So Tab9's model agnostic. We work with open models like Llama and Quen and Gemma. We support private fine-tuned deployments. And we also offer, we're IDE agnostic, as well as have a lot of CI and CD integrations without needing internet access, right? So this is why a lot of prime contractors, government integrators, classified development shops turn to Tab9, not because it's convenient, but because it's built for environments where failure isn't an option and control is everything. Again, we stand alone in this space and we welcome the responsibility that comes with it. Now, let's talk a little bit more. We'll shift gears into Tab9's real world impact, right? What we're seeing from some of our customers. And before we work through this slide, just want to make sure that folks are aware. If you have any questions, anything you want me to stop and double click on or dive deeper, something that you want to see a demo of, feel free to use that comment section here or the chat section of the webinar. Fully interactive, happy to answer any questions that you might have. So continuing to move on, this slide I would say speaks most or speaks to what matters most for engineering leaders in regulated industries. And that's trust, performance, and proof. Right? Tab9 isn't just another code assistant. We're an enterprise-grade AI platform purpose-built for organizations where compliance, security, and control are non-negotiable. So we'll start with the numbers here. Our customers are seeing a 73% automation factor, which means nearly 3/4 of their repetitive or routine code tasks are now fully handled by AI. And that's real measurable efficiency being unlocked. With Tesco software, the global enterprise, we help drive a 32% increase in developer productivity. And that's tied directly to their ability to ship features faster without compromising quality. They also reported an 84% lift in code quality compared to generic LLMs. And we know code quality is where their technical debt starts or stops. And most impressively, we've helped teams double their test coverage, a critical factor for engineering confidence, compliance, and speed. Now, on the right-hand side of this screen, you'll see a few of the enterprises that are trusting Tabnine. And these aren't startups, right? These are very mature, complex engineering organizations like GE Healthcare, AstraZeneca, Huck Coburg, Safran, right? Operating in industries where the margin for error is zero. Tabnine earns their trust because we deliver AI that's context aware, controllable, and built to integrate into the full complexity of the enterprise SDLC. And these teams aren't gambling on AI, they're scaling with it confidently. And here at Tabnine, we believe that we're entering not an industrial revolution where developers are being replaced, but rather a renaissance where human creativity flourishes alongside powerful AI tools. And we believe that the next chapter of software development isn't about fewer people. Uh, it's about better people equipped with smarter tools. AI doesn't replace creativity, but rather it unlocks it. The best teams won't be the ones that are chasing maximum automation. They'll be the ones that combine speed and quality, who put governance in place, who respect their developers' roles as creative architects. And that's really what craft coding is all about. And that's what Tabnine is here to help you achieve. We're here to partner with you, not sell hype, but to deliver disciplined, trustworthy AI that amplifies your teams and strengthens your outcomes. And together, I think we can build the future of software development that's fast, secure, and crafted to last. Now, there's a lot going on here on this slide, so we're going to take a second to break this down and talk through it. Tabnine allows developers to produce noticeably more deliverables without the extra effort. And this is achieved by its context-aware suggestions that go from auto-completing boilerplate code and routine code to generating documentation, tests, reviewing code, all to allow the developer or the engineers to focus on the unique logic of their application rather than mundane or routine coding tasks. And by integrating deeply into IDEs and supporting over 600 different languages and libraries and frameworks, Tabnine meets developers where they work, right, where they're comfortable, and also helps them save time on a wide range of tasks. And this corresponds, for example, to higher velocity and throughput, direct boost to the accelerate metric if you folks are familiar with the Dora framework. But let's break down what we're looking at here because there's a lot. But this slide also captures, I think, what makes Tabnine uniquely enterprise grade in the realm of AI software development. So at the center of this diagram, this platform architecture, is Tabnine's context engine. And that's really the brain behind everything that we do. And unlike black box AI models, let me just see here. I think we might have there are any issues with my video today, please let me know. I realized I was on Wi-Fi and not my secure network. So let me see here. Okay, so Or to keep moving forward, just switched off the Wi-Fi to a wired connection. So let me know if there's any issues in the chat. So center of this architecture is Tabnine's context engine. And again, that's the brain behind everything we do. And unlike black box models that make guesses based on outdated or generic data, Tabnine's context engine ensures every AI action, whether it's generating code, reviewing code, or validating it, is grounded in your real world context. So here's how that works. There's three pieces, really three core pieces. The first is multi-layered context ingestion, right? So we're not just looking at the code in your open file, we're drawing from your entire workspace. Your Git repositories, project documentation, Jira issues, terminal outputs, even knowledge base articles and architecture diagrams, right? Code and non-code sources of context. Then we have a semantic and vector memory. And these two types of memory work together to ensure precision. We extract relevant files or relevant entities like functions, APIs, dependencies, and then create a live, ever evolving, growing knowledge graph of your system. And this lets Tabnine reason about what exists and how it works together. And then there's context prioritization and assembly. And this is really what separates us from generic tools. We don't throw everything into the LLM and hope it sorts itself out. Instead, our engine dynamically assembles a precise, enriched content package or context package that aligns to the task at hand, whether it's a code suggestion, a test plan, or documentation. So why does that matter? Because in an enterprise environment, your code changes daily. Your architecture is layered and interconnected, and your security, compliance, and performance standards are non-negotiable. So Tabnine's context engine ensures that our AI respects those boundaries. So you're going to get speed without trust, or without sacrificing trust, excuse me. And at the bottom here is where you'll see it all come together. These are Tabnine's AI agents, right? To generate, test, document, review, fix, and soon to be edit, are all powered by this rich real-time context. So every output is policy aligned, architecture aware, and grounded in the systems that your team actually works in. So this is how we increase the quality of code recommendations, and it's done through personalization. And there's 4 levels of context. There's local context awareness, there's connection to your code and knowledge bases, there's coaching based on your standards, and then there's customization of the underlying models as needed. Now, for this first level of context awareness, local code base awareness, these are all the data points that we look at. Well, most of them. There's about 15 or 20 of them. So you have current file, open files, current selection, imported libraries, computer or compiler syntax errors, terminal, other project files, project metadata, conversation history, connected repos, and other sources of information. And when I say connected repos, we're also, we work with any Git-based repository, right? So it doesn't matter if you're using Bitbucket, Perforce, GitHub, GitLab, we play nicely with them all. And as well as other sources of information, gets used as this local context awareness. Now, the second piece here, or the second leg of personalization, is connection to your code and knowledge bases, right? So other software development tools, any Git-based repo, systems like Jira, which lets the AI leverage your existing work to deliver better, more accurate recommendations, again, without sacrificing privacy, though. Now, when you get into coaching, you get explicit guidance on how to control how Tabnine behaves, right? And this operates in the pull request as well as the IDE, as well as the terminal. And so Tabnine's generating code that complies with all of your standards. And Tabnine then enables customers to codify their institutional knowledge, right? For example, accepted standards for software development, unique best practices, corporate policies, right, into rules that can be applied in code review at the pull request or in the IDE or within the terminal. So you provide the parameters you'd like to see your code comply with via plain language, and Tabnine converts them into a set of comprehensive rules. And I'll show what all of this looks like here shortly in our demo. So Tabnine will then check the code in the PR or the IDE against your set of rules and flag any deviations and offer guidance and suggested edits to fix those issues. And this enables you to generate code that is of higher quality, more secure, and follows your best practices at scale. And finally, the last piece of customization is fine-tuning, right? Or fine-tuning the model for that ultimate personalization. But I also say that, the juice isn't necessarily worth the squeeze there. If you have a PHP, JavaScript, Java, TypeScript, things like that library, the juice isn't necessarily worth the squeeze, right? We find that a good RAG or context engine will outperform 10 times out of 10 a fine-tuned library. Now, why is that? So your code changes daily, right? And as your code changes, that model that was fine-tuned on that specific version of your code becomes obsolete. So you have to go back and you have to fine-tune again. That's laborious and resource exhaustive, right? Now, your code's changing daily. You're at a large organization. So what do you have to do? You have to fine-tune very, very, very frequently, which again, very laborious, very resource exhaustive. So I usually recommend that it's not worth it. If you're a person or an organization who's using Spark, Verilog, Ada, COBOL, those very hard to read, poorly documented languages, that's a different story. Those are possibly worth fine-tuning your own LLM on, right? But outside of that, I do not think it's worth it. Now, as we like to say here, any agent can write code. Ours earn your developer's trust and provide real-world value. And now that you have an understanding of sort of why code review is so darn important, let's talk about the way that Tabnine's capabilities are putting you and your team in the best position possible to leverage these innovations today and for years to come. Right? We built Tabnine for mission critical engineering. And that means much more than just suggesting code. It means being deeply accountable to your developers, tightly aligned with your organization's standards, and protective of your most sensitive IP. So we're controlled, right? We're accountable to your developers. With Tabnine, your engineers stay in control. Our platform provides full visibility into every suggestion. It's backed by references, explanations, and validated against your standards. Nothing is shipping without human approval. Again, this isn't black box AI. This is transparent, explainable AI that engineers trust and actually adopt. The second piece here is it's grounded, right? We're onboarded to your organization. Tabnine doesn't just understand programming, it understands your code base, your architecture, your guardrails. And it runs inside your environment and adapts to your coding practices and follows your policies with real-time context and enforcement. So this isn't AI that's trained to think like your team, or this is AI, excuse me, that's trained to think like your team, not a generic model that's guessing from the outside. And then the last piece here is it's secured, right? It protects your most sensitive IP. Your code, your data. Our solution runs fully within your perimeter, whether it's on-prem, air-gapped, or VPC. There's no external calls, just total control over your IP and zero exposure to shadow AI risk. And that's what enterprise-grade AI looks like or should look like. With Tabnine, we eliminate the need to trade off between privacy, performance, and protection. You can get it all here. And these are not co-pilots, right? They're your agents. They're built for engineering teams where trust and value isn't optional. It's mission critical. And it's not just us tooting our own horn, by the way. We've been recognized by leading analyst firms. Most recently, Gartner recognized us. And looking at 12 major providers in the space, we ranked first for 3 use cases and a very, very, very close second for the other 2 of the 5 use cases. We're also fan favorites by Everest Group, as well as OMDIA and IDC. So don't just take our word for it. You can take the analysts as well. So let's jump over to the demo here, which I'm sure is what you folks came here to see, and we'll get cranking there. Give me 1 second to move my screens around. Okie dokie. 1 second here. All right. Let me switch this around. Thank you for bearing with me. All right. Let's get cranking. So this is the Tabnine UI. And we're going to start with a little bit of an overview, and then we're going to jump into a scenario. So for starters, let's go over what you folks will see when you're first interacting with Tabnine and each of the agents that we'll find all along the way and the different form factors we'll find Tabnine within your local IDE. So again, we are IDE agnostic, but in this case, we're using VS Code. And when you open up VS Code and you have Tabnine installed, you're going to see a little icon here on the left-hand side. Now, clicking that icon is going to open up Tabnine AI Chat. This is where a lot of our magic happens here. Now, at the top, this is where you can determine the model that you're using for your queries as an individual developer. And as an admin, you get to control which models are available to your developers, right? So they're not using anything that hasn't been provisioned, cleared, and certified by your team. In this case, we're going to be sticking with Claude 4, though, for today. Now, below that, you're going to see an area for prompting, right? This is something I'm sure a lot of you folks are familiar with, right? You are able to enter in natural language, conversational, everyday language to type in prompts and queries and get back answers, suggestions, and so forth. Now, below that is something that's unique to Tabnine. This is our context scope. This allows a developer on a query by query basis to determine the scope of their query, right? So you can have Tabnine look at current file, workspace, code base. We can also add terminal as context. And then we can go in and get very granular and specify a specific repository, a folder, or a file within that folder, within that repository. Now, below that, you'll find 4 buttons. Right? The ability to use @mentions. This allows us to reference specific files or code blocks, right? Next to that, you'll find a \, which is where you'll find a handful of our agents. These top 5 come out of the box with Tabnine. So your explain code, generate code, or test for code, excuse me, document code, fix code, and code explore. And we'll show how to use each of these here shortly. But then you also have the ability to create your own custom commands, right? Things you find yourself prompt engineering every day. And we'll show what a few of those look like here shortly as well. Now, to the right of that, you'll have the ability to use images as context, right? So ER diagrams turned into Postgres schema. Someone on your marketing team finds a part of your front end broken. They circle it in Adobe and they send it over to you as a bug fix. You can use that as context here within Tabnine to locate that feature and fix that code. To the right of that, you'll have our Jira integration, right? This is where you're able to add a Jira ticket to the context, allowing you to implement and then validate those tickets that have been implemented. Now, to the right of chat, you're going to find our test agent. And our test agent allows you to generate comprehensive test plans for your code, either from scratch or from a current test file. And we'll show what that looks like here shortly. And then finally, you have your code review agent, right? The ability to review your current uncommitted, staged, or branch to default code against the rules that your organization has set up as guidelines and standards to follow. Now, moving into the actual project itself, Tabnine, we started off, when we were Codota at the time, uh, with code completion. So of course we have those. As you type, Tabnine is going to recognize your intent, right? Whether it's typing adding another rule, God bless Rule 17, wouldn't have to follow all of them, or wouldn't want to follow all of them, but in this case, if I was entering another one here, it recognizes that intent. Same goes for documentation, test generation, implementing a telemetry service. Tabnine is just going to be aware of what you're doing and provide helpful recommendations along the way. Now, above that, which you'll see here, you'll see above every block of code, something we call the code lens. It allows you to access those agents, but more in your developer flow, allowing you to edit, test, fix, explain, or document this block of code specifically, right? And you'll see that for each block of code here within your files. Now, the last piece we'll cover, sort of a form factor where you'll find Tabnine in this overview, is our drop-down palette. Now, this is initialized with a Command I on a MacBook. Understand, for some of you JetBrains users, that may be a key mapping issue or key binding issue, but don't worry, you can remap your buttons, your keys, so no issues there. But Command I opens up this dropdown. And again, this is just a very fast, quick action way to access those same agents, as well as enter in natural language, determine your scope and model. So let's get into a scenario here and show some of these tools in action. And what we're going to do today is we'll play this out like I'm new to the team, right? And we just got out of a new to the org, and my PM just asked me to update an area of our product, right? But the issue is my team lead currently is in a meeting, and I don't want to bother them. So how can I be independently, or how can I be independent and get work done and be self-sufficient, right? Without having to bother other people or ask other people, right? So what we're going to first do is, I know that there is a ticket assigned to me, and I know it has to do with this application. So let's first start with getting an understanding of what the ticket is. So we'll go over here and we have this custom behavior, this custom command called Jira summary, right? And what it does is something that I built, we'll show you here, that it reads my Jira ticket, and then we'll provide a summary, right? The objective, the overview, edge cases, related code, a test plan, and just summarizing this Jira ticket. So we'll jump back over, do Jira summary, and let's reference this ticket. Perfect. Okay. So it is a color scheme update, a slight brand redesign of the dashboard's visual design. Here are the potential edge cases. Here's all the potentially related code that will allow me to dive a little bit deeper into this. A test plan. Then I can also see my references because again, Tabnine doesn't do anything uh, without full transparency. Now, okay, have an idea of what this is. Now I want to learn about the project that I'm currently working in, right? Or that I'm going to have to work in. So what we'll do is we'll use our Code Explorer agent. And what the Code Explorer agent does is it returns um, it'll do a high level summary of the project's key elements, runnable scripts, key dependencies, overall structure, as well as provide a follow-up to my question, right? Allowing me to dive a little bit deeper as the developer about this specific query. Now, let me see here. I see there's also some questions here. So why don't I see the review tab, White Wolf? This is in private preview. If you do want access to this and you are a customer, please reach out to your customer success manager and we can get you access. Same goes for you, Dave. The review tab is new and exciting, but in private preview. So again, please reach out to your customer success manager. Now, we'll keep moving forward here. Within this, or using this Code Explorer agent, right? Now we have an idea of what we're working with. It understands my tech stack. It's also going to tell me how to start, right? Now it's important to note that Tabnine doesn't just provide code suggestions. We're also providing terminal commands, right? So let's see here. We can dive a little bit deeper. We'll ask more questions, right? Giving me, okay, let's see here. Perfect. So it's allowing me as a developer to have more of an understanding, right? Now I'm fully aware and up to speed on what this application does and how it all works together. And now let's say that, let's go back to our chat history, which we can do, right? We'll go back here and we'll say, okay, there's a specific area of this dashboard.tsx that maybe I'm not so sure of, right? What we can do here is use the code explain. So we'll hit explain. In Explore project-wide, explain it's specific to files or code blocks, right? So it's going to go through and give us a very granular analysis of the highlighted code, talking about the structure and then the purpose, right? So now that we have an understanding of what it is we're doing and how it works, let's start working on this implementation, right? So what we'll do here is we will bring in this Jira ticket and we'll say implement this ticket. Now, the first thing you're going to see it do is create a unit test. And why is that? Well, the way that my Tabnine environment is set up, I have a specific custom behavior, which I'm happy to share with any of the folks here on the call today, that explicitly tells Tabnine to follow TDD, among many other things. But it follows dry and solid principles. It adds logging statements when necessary, when possible. Refers to me by my full name, right? There's things that you can do with custom behaviors that fundamentally change how Tabnine will interact with you on a daily basis. Let's update the alert system component. Okay. Perfect here. This is a nice big update. Awesome. Okay. Let's start pushing this through. So first, let's create a new unit test. We'll click apply. Now what apply does in tab 9 is inserts that code exactly where it should be, regardless of current open file or cursor location. You can then review the diff. We'll hit accept, and boom, we have our first unit test for this code. Now we'll update the Tailwind config. We'll click apply. It'll take us over there, switch the colors around. That looks good. We'll also add in this documentation explaining that we did change that code. Now let's update the dashboard component. This is a large one here. Sweet. That has been changed. Then let's update the final, where is it? Alert system. Perfect. Okay. Now what we can do here is to make sure that this is, oops, running correctly. Let's jump down here. Oh yeah, it is running. It's not beautiful. It's Florida themed, but it is running. We have those changes that have been implemented. It was originally purple and blue. Now it is green and unfortunately orange. Perfect. All right. Now we can see that some of this acceptance criteria has been hit, but let's just run that command again, and let's validate that this has been implemented correctly. Validate this ticket. Sweet. It's going to tell us to create another test here just to ensure that validation. Seem to think there might have been an issue with the alert system. Maybe not all of it got initially updated. Of course, it wants me to test heavily, which I have a hate and love relationship with, but that's part of it, right? I accept it. I told myself I want to follow TDD, and even though I don't I don't enjoy it all the time, that's not important, right? At an enterprise level, you have to put emotion out of it, and you just have to follow standard, right? So it is following standard. Step drive, Bower. Okay, so there's two issues here. This is the good stuff we want. It's referencing the wrong ticket, which is probably from a previous comment or a previous commit. And the component was using purple and blue instead of the required orange and green. Now, I think this was an area that's the alert system isn't something I really care about changing, but it's giving me that issue there. So I am aware of it, right? But it's also validated that a lot of my implementation is correct. And I think this is really, really important, right? Because it's not just blindly telling you, hey, you're good to go. Everything's perfect. It's production ready. It's saying, hold on a second. Let's pause. There's still a little bit more that we need to do. Here are some issues that I found. Is that something you're aware of? If so, let's fix it. If not, let's continue to push forward. right? And I think that's really, really powerful. Now, moving forward, we've added uh, new code here. Let's add some documentation. So what we'll do here is we can highlight this code. Let's start a new conversation, and let's use our documentation agent. Sweet. And we'll generate code for this specific block that is highlighted. And all we have to do is we're just insert that at the cursor. Perfect. There we go. So now we can generate documentation, right? You can do it either using the chat. You can do it using the code lens here. You can even go up to the top and let's see, this might be giving me issues. And you can document code from using the code lens or the quick command drop down. So it's all about where you're comfortable as a developer. It's one of the biggest pieces I think here with Tabnine that is uh, often overlooked, right? Is the freedom and flexibility to code how you want to code, to use the agents how you want to use the agents. It's something that's not as flashy or maybe inherently sexy, but something that is so darn important when you really get down to brass tacks. Now, moving forward, let's start testing, right? But we're going to test outside of this application with one that we already have a test file for. So when you test with Tabnine, right, you can go over to this this test agent within the chat bar or the chat window. And what it will do when you hit generate test plan for code, it's going to prompt you to select the code that you want to test for, right? You can do blocks of code, you can do entire files, right? So we'll do an entire file, the generator.java file. Now, if you didn't have a file, you would say, I don't have a test file. It would create a path for you, but you can obviously fine tune and change the name of this file path as you see fit. In this case, though, we do have a test file already in our project, which is something we found very common, right? A lot of our customers aren't going from 0 to 10. They're going from 10,001 to 10,002, right? So they already have some form of testing usually in place, but it might not be that rigorous, right? So what we'll do here is we'll hit continue, and Tabnine is going to start generating me a comprehensive test plan for this specific code file, right? That generator.java in this case. Now what it will do is we'll generate a handful of suggested tests, but what you'll also see, which is very special about Tabnine, is that it's going to consider all of your existing tests as context, right? And will help you get to full test coverage or full code coverage by suggesting tests that aren't currently covered in your current test scope, right? Now, what you can do here is you can select the test that you want to implement. We'll start with this one. Clicking that plain English description is going to prompt Tabnine to start generating that test for you. We are awaiting. There we go. We can review the test. We can modify the test as we see fit. And then we can just apply that test, right? And it'll insert that test exactly in our code base where it should be, regardless of cursor location. Perfect. It'll also be symbolic of a red check mark here on the right-hand side. But then you can go through, you can add and pick and choose, cherry pick the test that you like, and then ultimately rerun that code review agent again, get a new batch of tests, and then keep repeating and reiterating on that process. Again, though, ultimately getting you to fuller or more 100% test coverage or closer to 100% test coverage or code coverage exponentially faster than your developers have ever had the ability to do before. While, very important, keeping it personal, right? making sure that they still have the ability to choose the test, to polish the test, to modify them as they see fit, to describe and add their own custom test cases here within the bottom, right? It's not replacing them. It's just elevating them and giving them more power, empowering them to do more and better work. Let's see here. Can Tabnine go through the complete source code and provide review comments based on custom rules setup? Yes. Yes, you can. One of the things that we also recommend you to do is you can have Tabnine analyze what we call a golden repository, and extract a rule set from that, right? A golden repo being where you have your best code being written. It's documented very well. It's tested well, rigorously, vigorously, excuse me. And it's Tabnine will analyze and extract a rule set from that, and then you can thus apply that custom rule set as well. Yeah, hope that answers your question. But good question. Keep them coming. So we've added new tests here. We've added documentation. I think the next step here would be to go on to code review, right? So let's shift gears here. Gosh, I hate this dashboard. All right, let's update this. Okay, so this is our coaching engine. Let's see. How about? Sorry, I see another question here. How about reviewing PRs created in Bitbucket? So we do not have a Bitbucket. We support Bitbucket, but we do not have a integration yet with like the equivalent of Bitbucket Actions like GitHub Actions has. But I'll show you all of this here shortly in 1 second, though. I love the questions. Keep them coming. So coaching engine, right? You can have them, they come standard, right, where you can add default guidelines, ones that we've gathered, evaluated, and implemented or made available to implement from leading voices in the software development space, right? The best and brightest folks that I'm sure that a lot of you folks on this call would be familiar with. Now, you can also, again, import your own guidelines. And what that looks like is a simple sheet like this. You determine your rule name. You determine the language it comes in or that you want it to apply to. And you provide a description of the rule. It can be very, very simple. It doesn't need to include the pattern or the suggestion. It can just be this always try with resources, always use try with resources for scanner and other auto closable resources, right? You can ask then Tabnine, hey, can you help me out with a bad example and a good example? And it can help. That's where I got all of these examples from, right? Now, this simple CSV sheet, all you have to do is import it into your admin console, and within minutes you'll have a custom rule set. Now, the very important thing here, that the concept to grasp is that we're giving organizations the ability to codify institutional knowledge, right? Software development best practices, accepted standards, compliance, rules around organization, readability, maintainability, correctness, performance, security. We're able to codify those, right, into rules that can then be enforced for every developer across the entire organization who's using Tabnine 24/7. They don't need to wait for a code reviewer to wake up or to get out of a meeting. They can have access to that knowledge, to that brain, collectively, your entire organization's best and brightest brains, immediately, 24/7, and perform these code reviews, right? And that's huge. And I think it's particularly important because, you know, you look at, the 55 of us that are currently on this call. If I were to ask you folks how to implement a tracer provider in Go, we'd probably get 55 different answers. And that's just the way that software development is. And the hard part is that 55 of them might be all correct. They probably are. But the only one that's going to make it into production is the way that you do it and you write it at your organization, the way that your organization writes code. So having this sort of sophistication, right, when it comes to code review is crucial. It's critical. And just to see, I see another couple comments. Christopher, nice name, by the way. Glad to hear that you've been a customer for 2 years and you love the NeoVim integration. Friends with someone on our side of the house who is responsible for producing that, so I will send the message. That's awesome to hear. Can Tabnine go through the complete source code and provide review comments based on the custom rules setup? Any demo or tutorials available? Yes, it can. It's got to be a bigger, I wouldn't say a bigger lift. You might have to judge a little bit around, but you could definitely do that. It just might take a little bit extra effort, but still exponentially easier than going through thousands of lines of code and trying to remember hundreds of different rules, right? We're humans. You have to even think of something that you know very, very well. Try to name 100 of them, right? Same thing goes for a code reviewer. They might be fantastic at it, but tell them to name 85 Python rules, 71 JavaScript rules, 56 Java rules, and 10 TypeScript rules. I guarantee you they're not going to remember every single one of them. And if they do, you've got yourself a fantastic code reviewer that I would never give up. But the majority of them won't, right? So I think having this sort of level of sophistication and review and scrutiny is quite important. Mission critical, if you will. So let's jump back into what it actually looks like on a developer's point of view, right? Let's see here. Okay, so let's start our code review, and we'll show it a handful of ways. The first being, we'll just start this up here. View repository. Let's say you're working in the terminal and you don't want to use chat. Here's one way to kick things off. We'll also start code review here. So within the IDE, within the terminal, and then we'll also show a GitHub Actions, but let's review this report. So within the terminal, this is the output that you would see, right? So I would see that it sent all of my files and all of the code since my last commit out for code review, right? And it's seeing that, and it's comparing them, or all of that code, right? Uncommitted code against this rule set, right? Explicitly this Java rule set, because that's what kind of code this is. Now, oh, that's fantastic. Okay. Now, when it comes to the output, it'll show you if there is a violation, the file, the violation itself, the to-do, the description, the rule ID that was broken, the suggested revision, and the code to insert, right? Then we can also take that a step further, and we can ask Tabnine to consider the terminal as context. And we can say, help me fix the errors provided in the terminal via code review. And that little flash just showed us that Tabnine just reviewed the terminal as context. And it's showing that we have an issue with the main.java file and what to do with it, right? It's showing me the violation and how to fix it. And here's all my references, right? some of which local, some of which remote, right? Based on other code bases that are connected into Tabnine. It has full code base visibility, right? It's aware globally how my organization writes software. Let's just see here if we found anything. Yeah, well, we're in private preview here, so bear with us. Everyone loves a live demo, especially when you run into a little issue, but that's okay. Code review is very similar output, just styled a little bit nicer than looking at the terminal. But we'll move over here to the GitHub report, right? So have a coworker here, Josh. Say Josh is my engineer. I am the code reviewer. I can go in and I can, this is what it looks like from a GitHub POV, right? Josh submitted me a PR, code review, performed a review, right? And now this is what I see as the reviewer. I go through and I can see, okay, this is the file in question. Here is the code that is in question. And I need the, here's the rule that was violated. And then here's my to-do, right? And we have that for each of these, right? I can have a conversation with Josh. I can commit that suggestion if need be. I also then have a sort of a summary that goes over everything that we found within that report, right? But allows me to have a conversation though back and forth with Josh saying, hey, what happened here? What was that error? Why did we have that issue? And we can problem solve and again turn code review back from something that's an anxiety inducing and ultimately missing a lot of critical issues to something that is enjoyable, that's mentoring, it's educational and actually helping, not being a bottleneck anymore, right? It's allowing your developers to focus on the important parts of their job, right? Not routine, fast PR checks, right? And code reviews, but meaningful code reviews and allowing them to spend their time on other areas of the business. Now, I just want to make sure, let me see if I can pull something up here. There's one thing we didn't cover that I think is worth covering here. Let me jump in and do, this is an older version. Let me see. Show me how to, it's an open telemetry. Telemetry tracer provider. There's two more sort of scenarios that we're gonna show. Hopefully this one will work. So there's two features I wanted to bring up here at the end of this call. One of which is, whoops, let me see here. One of which is provenance and attribution, right? So let's see. As Tabnine, or when Tabnine generates code, right? Let's back up. LLMs that generate code, right? There was a study that was done, I think, 6-8 months ago, that looked at the frequency that these code or LLMs generated code that had licensing issues, right? Using non-permissive licenses. And the frequency was around 1 to 2% is what it fluctuated. It was 0.8% to 2.1 or something along those lines, which is good and bad, right? It's good to know that it's not frequently or very frequently generating code that's non-permissive, but it validates the thinking that we need to be aware of the code that it does produce, right? And it looks like I'm not getting any provenance and attribution here, which is good. We'll try this over here really quick. But what provenance and attribution does in tab 9 is it's going to look at any publicly generated code or any generated code and look at to see if there's any matching of any publicly visible code on GitHub. And if there is a match, right, if there's any similarities of the code that it suggested and that GitHub code, it's going to provide something called attribution, right? It's going to show you exactly the code, the source code that came from, and the licenses that are attached to that code. Now, let's see here. You can make a judge then as a developer. Do I want to use this code or do I want to use something different? And it looks like we're doing well enough at tab 9, even though I've been very explicit with it. It's not pulling in any publicly visible code, right? Which is good. But if it does come up, you would see a little attribution sign here and would allow you as a developer to review that suggestion and determine, do I want to add this code in or do I want to withhold this and choose something else and write something else? You can also then take the decision out of the developer's hands and take it one step further. We can implement something called censorship, or you can implement something called censorship. Censorship, what that does is completely ban outright bans the use of, let's say, non-permissive code. So none of your developers will ever even see any code that, let's say, has a GPL 3.0 license in it, right? Which is huge. We talk about wide scale compliance, right? This is how it's done. Now, the last piece we'll show here is modernization, because I think this is a really slick thing that the feature of tab 9 is the modernization and refactoring of legacy code bases into something that's new, right? So here we have that same CLI password generator that I had before, right, that we were working on over here. Now, let's see if I do. Oh, how do I always forget how to run this sucker? Well, what's important to to say here is this is a CLI Java application, right? I'm pretty sure it's being ran in Java 11, Java 18 maybe. It's a pretty old Java application, right? Heck, we can just ask tab 9, what version of Java is this code written in? Yeah, Java 11, fantastic. Nice and ancient. What you can do with tab 9 is let's say we want to modernize an application. So similar scenarios where we started earlier. I'm a developer, new to the org. I know that there is another team who is refactoring a legacy code base, right? We're redesigning our current product. Now I've been tasked to help contribute. I'm familiar with the old legacy product. Heck, I've just been working on it this morning. But I don't really know this new language that well. And that's not uncommon, right? So how do I as a developer stay productive and get my job done? What you can do is you can use tab 9 to read external repos that your other team members might be working with or building on. And then you can use those repositories to help modernize old repositories, right? So what we'll do here is we'll start a new conversation. And let's ask tab 9 to, I know that my boss wants me to use bubble tea, right? We're migrating this Java CLI application to a Go application, and we're going to use a library by Charm Bracelet called bubble tea. So I can ask my tab 9 to explain, let's say, this repo that I know this other team is using. Now what it's going to do is go into that external repo, and it's going to break down this code for me. It's going to tell me everything that I need to know about how to to use this library, and in this case, use bubble tea. And to prove that it's not hallucinating, it's actually reading that specific repository, right? And clicking on that, which you can't see here, opens up a GitHub, right? Exactly, or whatever repository is being referenced, that explicit line or block of code or area of that repo, and takes you exactly to it. So you can see where the context and the references are coming from. But, okay, we have an idea. We know what this external repo that my team is building with now. I have an understanding of it. We can ask Tabnine to, let's say, modernize at, do generator, we'll do main, we'll do password, and we'll do alphabet. Now what Tabnine is going to do is it's going to, oh, geez, this has never happened. Hasn't happened on this demo yet. Give me a second here. Sweet. So there we go. Now it's starting to go through and doing the modernization, but using that external code base as context, right? So I've given it an external repo that my team is currently building. I'm saying use that as context. Take this legacy project, modernize it, but using their work as context. And then again, it's going to follow my custom behavior following TDD and add unit tests or tests for each of the files that I explicitly called out. And then it's going to go through the implementation of actually creating a Go version of this application. Now, just to prove a point that it actually does work, let's this is the same application. I didn't take the time to go in here and rewrite this in Go. I just asked Tabnine to create, to modernize that application for me, and it brought over all of the functionality that I had in my old application and made it exactly how I want, right? Except it's just a little bit more fancy now, right? But it's that same functionality, and you can use Tabnine to then, modernize old legacy code bases and applications. Now, just because we talked about it so heavily today, and that was the theme of this call, code review, just a few other things that I want to talk about here when it comes to code review, right? Linting or linting tools is fixed, right? It checks against predefined rules, patterns, primarily focusing on style, syntax, and basic logic issues. So think of it as like a strict grammar checker that follows a very rigid rule book. In contrast, Tabnine's code review agent is much more like an experienced senior engineer who understands your team's specific context and preferences. And I would say that's the first big differentiator, right? So code review agent understands your entire code base, your team's patterns, your organization's unique standards. It can identify code that doesn't align with how your team specifically writes software, even if that code is technically correct. That's huge. Linting only checks against universal rules and patterns with no understanding of your team's specific approaches or preferences. The second piece is customization depth, right? The code review agent can be coached through plain language instructions about your team's preferences and standards, right? You can explain complex architectural principles or business logic that you want it to enforce. Linting primarily offers code review through or configuration through technical and rejects patterns, technical rules and rejects patterns. It's limited liability or limited ability to understand higher level concepts. Now, the code review agent theoretically is going to get smarter about your code base over time through its connection to your repositories and documentation, and it will be able to recognize specific patterns to your projects. Linting rules remain static unless manually updated. And then the feedback quality. I'll also say this is huge, is that the code review agent provides detailed explanations of uses, suggested improvements, can even generate code fixes while maintaining consistency with your existing patterns. Linting only usually offers a brief, predefined error message and a basic fix suggestion, right? Something that you know, is, as I would argue, less helpful than W3 schools or Stack Overflow, right? And code review, again, is much more detailed, right? And helpful, I would say. And then the scope of analysis is the last piece, right? Tabnine's code review agent can evaluate architectural decisions, implementation approaches, security implementations or implications, performance considerations, all in the context of your specific application. Linting primarily focuses on code level issues like formatting, potential bugs, and very basic best practices. So think of it this way. A linting tool is like a spell check, while Tabnine's code review agent is more like having a senior developer who's fully onboarded into your code base inside and out, reviewing your code. Now, the last sort of piece I will show here is just within the settings section. Two little or three little areas. First being response length. You can determine concise or comprehensive. Comprehensive is what I was using today. Every day is a school day, so I like to learn as much as I can and be a sponge. This never changes for me. Custom behavior. This is where I think you can fundamentally change how Tabnine interacts with users on a case-by-case basis. Whether it's adding things like following TDD or adding logging entry and exit statements, or even localizing Tabnine. You can localize Tabnine through this custom chat behaviors using English and non-English characters, right? So from Japanese to German to Marathi, all of which can be localized within Tabnine. And then the last piece here is your custom commands, right? Being able to build custom commands that you find yourself prompt engineering on a daily basis. You can then share these custom commands with other folks, right? Sharing them, click share, that'll prompt Tabnine to create a Tabnine commands file. So as these get pushed and pulled down from your SCM of choice, they will also come packed with custom commands. So as you initialize this project or open up this project within your IDE, you'll have a set of custom commands that come out of the box with it as well, ones that your team members have created, right? Ensuring that consistency and scalability across the board. So one question here from Tristan, you mentioned Perforce. Does this integrate into anything like Helix Swarm for code reviews? I don't believe we have a specific integration for Helix Swarm yet. But if you are a current customer, reach out to your CSM, and they might be able to figure out a way to get that set up, but not currently yet, I believe. I'm also been known to be wrong from time to time, but I don't think we have one of those integrations yet. Great question, though. And that's pretty much it for the session today. If there are any questions, comments, concerns, excuse me, things that I did not cover that you want to see me cover, now is the time, or forever hold your questions. You can always answer them or ask me on LinkedIn as well. Just a ping away. But again, any research that I've talked about here today, if you want to see it, shoot me a message. I can send you over the packet of all sort of the articles and research documents and studies that I use to provide this info or to build this deck. Also happy to share that custom command or custom chat behavior out with any folks here if you are interested. Slightly biased, but I think it does work really well. But we'll stay on for a few more minutes. If anyone has any questions, just pop into the chat. John, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming. Appreciate the compliment. Sweet. If there's no more questions, we're going to wrap things up. As always, thank you folks for coming. This is my favorite part of my job. So yeah, really enjoy it. So as always, we'll see you folks soon. We're going to be taking a slight hiatus and break from Tabnine office hours, but like every one of your favorite shows, right? There's always seasons, and people always need a little window of rest here. Let's see one more. Does Tabnine have any learning tutorial videos to teach best practices for using it? Recently upgraded from basic to paying when pushed and loving the AI assistants. That's awesome, John. Really happy to hear that. Best practices tutorials. There's some stuff within our documentation, and we're actively doing a big overhaul there to make sure that the documentation is much better, and folks feel like they're able to be enabled and empowered, further from just reading that. But we also have some awesome videos on our YouTube channel, is where you can find all of these office hours and all the ones we've previously done that have been live streamed are hosted there as well. So there's some getting started videos, John. There's also a 13 or 14 minute video that sort of covers everything you can do with Tabnine, all of the different use cases, some of which are pretty edge but pretty cool. Sometimes just conceptually seeing how things are done, right? Understanding that you can do this is all you need to see or experience, right? That's how I was with some of these custom commands. I don't know why it never occurred to me prior that you can add steps, right? For the longest time, mine were nowhere near as complex as this, right? It was one or two lines, right? But adding steps is something that you can do that's sort of outside the box. When it comes to, I would say, the best practices for prompting, how they say garbage in, garbage out with AI? It's more like vague in, chaos out. So for an example, incredibly important to be very clear with your language, as it helps generate more specific responses. If I were to say write a function to encrypt to encrypt passwords, or write in a function to encrypt passwords using bytecrypt and validate the encryption. That second one is going to give me a much better response and suggestion back, right? It's more specific, it's less vague. Another tip, start fresh conversations for each new task. Don't be that person who tries to explain 5 different bugs in one conversation. We all know how well that goes in stand-up meetings. So start a new conversation or a new chat conversation when working with a new task or a new problem domain, right? As we saw earlier here today, that I asked Tabnine for a summary of a ticket to understand how the code base, what I was being tasked to do from my PM. And then I went over and I started a new conversation asking it to explore the code, right? So I had an understanding of what the entire code base was doing. And then I came back to this conversation to work on that ticket implementation, right? So you can start new conversations, but try to keep your conversations in a similar theme, right? AI is like your brain. It can only handle so much. So how can I improve the security of my password generator? It's one chat. It's how can I, question about documentation, another chat, right? As you have different problem domains, start new conversations. When using AI, context is king, queen, the entire royal family, right? So without context, you can't make use of Tabnine's RAG generation, right? We're a RAG system. So you get raw LLM response. So remember, an LLM alone is like a new team member who's brilliant, right? They know the O'Reilly textbook answer to everything, but they haven't learned your code base yet. So the more context you give it, the less likely it is to suggest something that'll make your senior engineers spit out their coffee in horror. So when you see me go, let's just back here, adding in, current files or workspace or terminal, right? If I didn't have terminal as context, it wouldn't have been aware of that specific issue and helped me fix it, right? Or having the right context as well. I don't need workspace or current file or terminal when I'm explicitly querying certain remote external code base, right? I only need code base connection on, or I need to go in and specify that specific repo, right? Now, another tip for prompting is to break your prompts down into steps, even when you're here within Tabnine chat, right? Don't just say, instead of make me a test case, be specific, right? It's the difference of telling someone make me dinner versus giving them a recipe. Unless you want the AI equivalent of a microwave dinner, be precise, be very precise. And same goes for, when it comes to file management. You know how your browser slows down when you have 100 tabs open. Same principle here. Keep relevant files open, close the ones you don't need. The AI's context window is like your brain after a long debugging session. It can only handle so much. But I would say the golden rule here, the most important thing, John, would be to be clear, be specific, and please do not be afraid to iterate. Right? It's a process. Let's see a few more. Yes, Christopher, you can set Tabnine to replicate and make suggestions on your coding style. Whether I haven't. Let me see here. You would be able to do it from your custom behaviors. Exactly the type of prompt or the exact syntax, I'm not exactly sure of. But to my point just a second ago to John, don't be afraid to reiterate. So, recently what you've done is include a markdown that has code snippets. Yeah. Also another thing, like I have, for example, a markdown file, not necessarily in this one, I don't think, but it had a way that it explicitly mentions how I like to write my documentation. So anytime at Tabnine would suggest, first it started if I wanted to write documentation, it would rewrite the documentation using that format that was in my markdown file. But as time went on, it just began to, anytime I would generate code, generate documentation, and generate documentation in my format and my style that I write in. So to your point, yes, you can do that. It's awesome. Yeah, we both have the same sort of style of how we get it implemented. So to your understanding, I can connect Tabnine to any AI provider I want. So the quality of responses will depend on it. What LLM did you use here? So I'm currently using Claude 4. And again, yes, you can hook up any or integrate any LLM of your choice into Tabnine, right? It's LLM agnostic, but I would say yes, to a degree, those responses are going to be based, of course, on how strong that LLM is, right? Whether it's, my opinion, Claude 4 is really good. I like it better than GPT 4.0 and GPT 4.1. I'm a Claude fanboy, right? But when it comes to my point earlier, any of these, while they might be really good, they're still going to lack the context out of the box, right? So you could use any of these model providers today, sure, without using Tabnine, right? But what you then lack is the context engine. And that's really the power here. Is there's I'd say, like, you're maybe putting new tires on a car that are going to perform a little bit better, but the real engine, the power behind the suggestions isn't the model of choice. It's truly the context engine and the sophistication there. That's what's going to provide you the really accurate suggestions that follow your code base and your patterns and your guidelines and your rules. Awesome to hear it's working so far, Christopher. Sweet. Love the questions. Love the questions. If there's any more of them, feel free to keep them coming. If not, I will give it another 30 seconds. This is V2 of us wrapping up. Appreciate it. Hope you found some value here. Sweet. If that's it, then let's wrap things up. Stefan, thank you very much. I appreciate you attending. Hope you had value as well. Hope you folks have a nice week, and I am sure this is not the last time we'll see each other. We'll be back on here soon. As always, thank you very much for stopping by. This has been nothing short of a blast, and have a good week. Happy coding.